I'm great. What's up? Hey?
Well, I have a question, obviously, as I
Yeah,
always do.
yeah.
Would you take 60,000 rand to, destroy your reputation, history, future job prospects?
Yeah.
I mean,
There is no amount that I would take ever. I once gave a talk about corruption. I said the trouble with it is you'll always want more, and there'll always be
right.
someone who's got more. And so
Okay.
it's a spiral into hell. But I would feel a bit insulted with the 60, to be fair, over an
Yes.
836 million rand deal. I'd go, Oaks, come on, man, make an
Yes, yes,
effort.
yes.
Hey?
Yes, yes. No,
Yes,
exactly. This
yeah.
is what I was saying. So obviously, we're talking about the fact that the maverick journalist Peter Louis Myburgh filmed the IDT CEO Tebogo Malaka, handing him over in a Dior bag. 60,000 rand in 200 rand bills, which looks impressive. You know what I mean? I mean, it filled the whole bag. I have to say that, but still, it's 60,000 rand, which I just don't think is enough. I mean, it's an insult to journalists.
Yeah, exactly. Well, journos, you keep on bemoaning how little you get paid. So this is like, I always think to myself, how the hell are you going to spend it? What are you going to walk in and buy yourself a
Yes,
25,000 rand thing and count the notes out? The guy will call the cops, surely.
I
Huh?
know. Yes, yes. Well, you could,
No, no.
there was that one weird situation where the depositors were caught putting the money into the ATM, depositing it into the ATM, not
Yeah.
realizing, not realizing that all ATMs have got cameras, dearest.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Yeah.
I mean, it is shocking. I just want to say it is important to distinguish between the IDT and the IDC. They're different organizations.
100%. Yeah. Yeah.
The IDT is basically the organization which is the implementation organization of the Department of Public Works. So, Mark, you've been in this field before.
Mm.
Why is it important to have the implementation agency separate from the government department? So the IDT goes around and builds schools and clinics and stuff like that theoretically.
Yeah.
But why can't the department just do that?
The implementers are outcome based, and
Right.
the providers of capital are income based. You know, I
Okay. Right.
yeah, it's you need someone. Ultimately, you need someone who knows what they're doing to build a bridge. Okay, I mean, allocating
Right.
funds to infrastructure you can do in your office, but when you're building a bridge, you have to dig deep enough until you get hard ground, and it has to carry trucks and it has to do real shit in the real
Right.
economy. So I would argue there is a case for a different group of people. Yeah.
Okay. So the corruption wouldn't be uh, um, less if we scrapped all of these damn implementation agencies. That's not a solution here, right?
Well,
I mean,
well, well. I think it would. I think it would be less. I think there'd be there wouldn't be a gap to fill. There
right.
wouldn't be a tender to fight about. There wouldn't be this discretion. Okay, if you
Right.
integrated the skill set into the center of capital, then the
Yes.
conversation takes place in one room, if you will. Okay, if you are the holder of the purse and you have
Right.
everyone fighting out there for a piece of it, that introduces the opportunity for favoritism, if not corruption. So I would
Right.
argue bring the skill sets in. This is where public-private partnership starts making sense. Okay, bring the skills in-house. But to do that, Tim, you're going to have to restructure the entire remuneration reward system. That's going to be the solution. I tweeted the
Yeah.
other day that a
Yeah.
CEO of a bank, of a
Yes.
leading bank, earns more in 10 days than a mayor stroke city manager of a major metro. Okay, now I'm
Right.
sorry, than they earn in a year. Now I'm
Right.
sorry, it's much harder to run Johannesburg than it is to run one of the big four banks. Okay, just in
Really?
terms of, oh, absolutely. I mean, it's a deeply complex system, and the
Right.
banks have essentially got an established normal distribution of risk, which they all lend to, and they've got very deeply established systems and marketing and staff and all of those kind of things. Joburg
Right.
is a fundamental mess. Who You need a better guy to run Joburg than to run one of the big four banks. You need a stronger, deeper team of skills and challenges, and they get paid a fraction. and it's not
Yes.
outcome based, it's rules based. There
Yes.
is the source of all this debate.
That's interesting. I mean,
Take that, sports
I
lover.
agree with
Yeah.
I agree with you, but you know what the problem is in South Africa. There are implementation agencies for all kinds of things. Just for example, not many people know this, but the city of Joburg has a whole
Mm,
bunch of implementation agencies, right? So
right.
actually, Pick It Up is the institution that collects the rubbish in
Yeah.
Joburg, but it's not actually run directly by the Joburg City Council. It's it has its own board, and that just involves a whole new set of problems. I can see the advantage. I can see you want to develop expertise, and the way to do that is to have something external from the kind of political system. So you know the American government doesn't run its own space program. It has NASA, and
Yeah.
a zillion other agencies. So I can see that logic. But what's happened in South Africa is those agencies, they've just running amok. They're just completely out of hand. And
Because no, it yeah. Because at the
sorry,
center,
carry on. Yeah,
yeah, no, because at the center, whether they're separate or together, at the center, there is no lucid judgment. Okay, there is no
right,
expertise to pass judgment on the veracity of the tenderer, if you like, in question, or even So I think take waste because I've looked at it a bit. Waste could be
right,
essentially a whole bunch of economic units, call them trucks. Okay, and they could
right,
all be vying for and be incentivized and all of those kinds of things. But you need the CEO of waste in the city, wherever it is, to be
right,
familiar with the challenges and technology and all of those other good things in order to pass
right,
judgment. I've always said this, and I'll say it one more time. You can't become a dentist by the popular vote. Okay.
right.
I
Yes,
mean, you have to be an expert. So it all comes
yes,
down to expertise. I'm going to digress to one thing. We are the only South country in the world that has
right,
two streams for mathematics. Okay.
right.
One is mathematics, and the other one is
Yes,
called mathematical literacy. We're the
right.
only country in the world that has those two offerings.
I didn't know
And
that. That's interesting.
mathematics normal is you do algebra and trigonometry and geometry. But what it
Right,
really does is it teaches you to think and understand, whereas
right,
mathematical literacy is designed to teach you to do, which
right,
which doesn't mean that you have to understand, you just be able to do. It teaches you to add things. It's more of of a course in finance, and not even in finance, in numbers. And so
right,
you have people less qualified wanting to superficially address something which begs at its genesis a deeper understanding. And that's really what we're
right.
still talking about here, Tim, aren't we? Yeah.
Well,
But what's the
I mean,
consequence of all of this?
Well, I mean, it's part of this South Africa's sort of current problem, which is a sort of incremental disintegration. We're not facing a
Yeah.
crisis in a sort of like immediate sense. What we are facing is this sort of gradual downhill slide, and I think the fact that these agencies are getting out of hand is part of the problem.
Yeah, it's you're right. But it's the frequency of that disintegration which is starting to worry me. There's a case study a minute now. Maybe it's just
Yes,
because social media is so pervasive, but no one is excused. No
right,
institution, no department, no function seems to be above this, and so
yes,
it's pervasive. And
yes,
and what is the ultimate consequence of that? Is that you can't raise money at an efficient cost, sufficient so that you can produce competitively the output or the function. And our cost of capital is going to be what kills us. And in the absence of productive revenue generation, we are
yes,
borrowing a life. And we're borrowing it at an increasingly unaffordable cost. And so then we start selling assets like
right.
that are not productive. And so that spiral is the ultimate consequence of everything we've spoken about up to now, Tim. is that
Yeah.
eventually we become poor or someone takes us over. That's what happens in business. And
Yes.
this SA Inc. It's also a business.
Yes. No, this is true. I mean,
It worries me.
isn't the cost of capital for developing countries always higher than for developed countries? Isn't that sort of built into the system?
It Yeah, generally I'd agree with that, but the cost of project capital isn't. So if you're going to build a
Yes.
port and you're in partnership with an international port builder, there is an
Right.
established way you build ports, and there's an established cost of capital and revenue stream projections and things of that nature, which should be country agnostic. Okay,
Yes.
if you didn't have political interference and if the leakages that we've been talking about all morning weren't there, and if the trust was and if the expertise and so on, and if so, I mean,
Yeah.
we look at our natural given resources and things of that nature in South Africa, and you compare them to some of the most successful economies in the world, and you have to go like, we had a good start. Okay,
Right.
I mean,
Yes.
compare us to Singapore or Dubai or I don't know,
Right.
even China. I mean, China's got. I saw a video the other day of touring China. It looks more beautiful than the best game parks in America. And I never
Yes.
think of China in that way. I think of it as big industrial, da da da. Go to work like a
Yeah.
soldier, but it's not. Okay, and
Yes.
so we're losing our way, and it's happening so fast that I think it might be good because we might
Yes,
actually
no,
get to a
you've made this
point
point
of,
before. Yeah, you say
yeah.
if we decline, but isn't that the problem with an incremental disintegration? Is that you never actually reach that point? It's sort of like, it's that old story about the frog
Well,
doesn't
yeah,
jump out of the
the
boiling
boiling frog,
water,
yeah.
um,
Yeah, well,
because
we are, but now the water's run out. We're on the base plate, okay? We're
well,
sitting on the bloody stove here, okay? And someone's going to jump at some point. I mean, I go back to the tooth. If you've got a sore tooth, you can treat it with painkillers, but at some point in time, whether you like root canal treatment or not, you better go there, okay? Because it's just
right,
too, it starts affecting your entire existence. Okay, well, enough of all of that. You know what? We were sitting the other day, I was sitting in a restaurant with some friends,
okay,
and we were saying that we're living in the best of times. My age group, which is the sort of late 60s, or, take anyone from sort of 60 to 70 at the moment. We've had the
right,
best life, Tim, and we're still having it.
right,
Okay.
right,
But we're not letting go. So the world
okay,
leaders, I think they call it
right,
now a genotocracy or something, countries run by old
yes,
men. Okay,
yeah,
now I'll give you a list. Modi
okay,
74, Putin 72,
right,
Netanyahu 75, Trump is 79, Ramaphosa 70. We've got people who would have to be regarded as an exception to get a job anywhere in business. Okay, they'd have
yes,
to break
yes,
the rules, all of them. Okay, they would go like,
right.
sorry, you passed the compulsory retirement age, but you can't work here. Okay, and they are in charge of the whole world. Okay,
Right.
Xi Jinping, all of them, and the real issue is this:
Yes.
the gap between those in charge and those coming into the ecosystem, be it political or economic, is so wide that I think we get to a point where we're living in parallel universes. Have a go at that, Tim.
Okay. Well, first of all, I have a stat which you might be interested in. Who is the
Maybe.
oldest world leader, Mark? Who's the oldest
No, you've got me. I
leader
thought
who's
it'd be Trump, but it's probably someone in some fabulous Singapore or something. I don't know. Where who?
no, Paul Biya from Cameroon? He's 92 and he's still in power. Has been for 35 years.
Yeah, but you see, here's the thing. Here's the thing. The fact that I didn't know it's not only an indictment on my knowledge, but it's
Right.
because who cares, you know, about Cameroon.
Yes.
I'm talking
Yeah,
about
but
the leading economies of the world, yeah, that are
no,
under
this
the
is true.
control of old people. Okay.
Yes, yes, yes.
Entrenched old
Cameroon,
people.
very beautiful place, by the way. I've been there. It's
Yeah.
so no casting shade on poor old Cameroon just because
No.
it's not China.
Yeah, but it
Anyway,
doesn't enter the world debate, It's not going to be
okay,
discussed at the
okay.
G20. Oh, don't mention the G20, the
Oh, gee, yeah,
selective tarring of roads
yes.
tell me about these
So
gatherings.
wait,
What
wait,
do you
wait.
think of
Can
this
I just stay?
gathering?
Let's stay on the age for a little bit because I wanted to just pick up on
Okay.
the question about whether or not we're living in different universes. Um, you know. I mean, first of all, isn't it inevitable if we live longer that the gap between the old older generation, the younger generation gets wider? Um, what does it matter that there's always been age gap. There was an age gap in Roman times. It was just between the 15-year-olds and the 30-year-olds. Of course, there's differences, and aren't there advantages about being old? You just as somebody who is well not that young anymore.
Yeah.
I'd like to
Yeah,
say,
well,
I have more experience, and yes, I've
yeah,
been through a lot, and I know things that maybe young people
yeah.
don't know.
Well,
So there's your counter
uh,
argument.
this is a huge argument because it's not just about it's about the replacement ratio. I think the birth rates are declining. Okay. Because
Yes,
people can't afford to have children, if you will, and that longevity, whilst it's filled with experience and all of these kinds of things, is fundamentally disregarded by the 15 and 16-year-olds, and they don't know what we're talking about. And we certainly don't know what they are talking about. Okay. And so I think that the gap is defined not only by the passage of time, but by the forces which drive people to stay in employment some of the most successful companies in the world have compulsory get out of here dates for their best people, not just for their worst people. And when
yes,
that gets stopped, you've got a hindrance, not an experience. You've got a hindrance. You've got people who don't understand, things that are sticking to what they believe in. Rubbish, man. We need to
yes,
listen.
yeah, no, no, no,
Listen.
yeah. I mean, it is an impediment to regeneration because in some ways the political systems, most of the political systems around the world, definitely all democracies, they're premised on the notion of term limits, precisely because you want that turnover, you want new ideas to keep on
Yeah.
coming in. But if you have a sort of 82-year-old succeeding an 80-year-old or whatever it was, then really you're getting quite a lot of the same mindset, you know.
Well,
Uh,
well, then do something dramatic. You can't do this overnight. But what happens if the age limit was 60? Okay.
right,
And you had to go by 60. A number of things have. First of all, we don't know what the alternative looks like while the incumbents are in place. Okay. And if you've been in
right,
place for 35 years or 20 years or 10 years even, then you have straddled huge technological advances and changes of migratory patterns of animals and humans and changes of forces and things of that nature. And we don't
right,
know what the alternative looks like because I tell you what, those in power are not there
right.
encouraging the voice of those who aren't.
Yes. No, it's
Now, in a
true. I mean,
company, you
this
can
is.
tolerate the both. Yeah.
I mean, in the modern world, um, the changes are happening so fast that this age gap is becoming more and more of a problem.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
it's sort of I experience this quite a lot with myself and knowing the latest changes in tech and AI, for
Mm,
example. The all of these things. They completely. There's that very funny post of somebody who gave somebody from the um, Z generation an old telephone and said, make a phone call. They had no
yeah.
idea how to sort of dial the numbers.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
On one level, that's really funny. On a different level, if the pace of change is speeding up, then the age gap starts to become more and more of an issue. I think you're right. I think maybe we should have compulsory um, a sort of compulsory proportion of our sort of leadership structures, both in public and private life. Maybe there should be a requirement that there should be a couple of young people, for God's sake. Is that would
There's
that
got
be
to be. I
stupid?
mean, you take pilots. I'm sorry, but you can't fly beyond a certain age, no matter how bloody experienced you are. But okay, because
Okay.
you just can't because you're not as aware and you're not as familiar and you're not as recently educated and all of those kind of things. And you just say, guys, we're not going to do this. When you've had your turn for 5 years, if you cross the line of 60, you go home. Okay,
Okay.
and that will force us to bring people into the mix. Anyway, I mean, we're talking against ourselves here just a little
No, no, no,
bit.
exactly. I was
Uh,
just gonna ask you what do you
no,
think that
I know.
the age limit should be on podcasters?
No, no. You see, we're not in charge, Tim. We're not making the
Aha.
rules.
No,
If
this
you're
is true.
making if you're not making the rules, you can do what the hell you like, man. I mean,
Okay.
I've got to mention as we're running out of time. I've got to talk about there's so many deals being done. I see now Nvidia has cut a deal where they're going to give 15% of their revenue generated in China to the US, everyone. And then someone
Yeah.
sent me this beautiful thing. He says, I can't remind Americans about this enough. You had a revolution because you didn't want to pay tariffs on tea. Someone just said that. So, I don't know about the wisdom of the ages, Tim. Have we learnt anything, man? I don't think so. I don't think
No,
enough.
this is
Um,
definitely true.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
All right, Mark. Well, that was fun.
Well,
Thanks for the chat. To
yeah,
the listeners out there, thank you for staying until the end of this podcast. Please do
yeah,
post it on social media, respond to us, criticize us. We enjoy it all. So thanks a
yeah.
lot. See you next week.
Having a bit of fun. Cheers, guys. Have a good week.